Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel, and today we are here to discuss if England can actually win the World Cup under Thomas Tuchel. And to be honest, just before we get in, I've almost convinced myself in the past week or so of watching every single game since Tuchel's joined England to get a feel for what England have changed under him, the tactics that maybe suit more tournament football, maybe suit playing against the major teams at these tournaments. And yeah, just before we get into it, thank you everyone who is subscribing to the channel. The support, as always, has been incredible over the last sort of 50, 60 days. So please do not forget, if you are not subscribed, to subscribe, like all the videos and comment, as that helps us more than you know in the algorithm. So yeah, this is going to be a real big one, and as I just said there, I've watched every single game under Tuchel back now for England, and to be honest, I'm looking more to the optimistic side. Obviously, all England fans always go into these tournaments, and there's always a rough patch when the squad comes out in terms of the pessimism, in terms of when we're playing international friendlies. Sometimes it looks slow, sometimes it just looks a bit depleted, a lack of freshness, and I fully understand that from England fans' perspective. One thing I will want to say straight away is that people are talking about, obviously, the games against Uruguay, Japan, New Zealand. I know they play Costa Rica in the coming days. Don't take too much from them games initially. And I know we are under a new manager in sort of a new path under him, what we're playing, what we're trying to do. But I've watched France, Spain, who were the other two favourites. You know, France got beat at home to Ivory Coast 2-1. Spain have drew their last two international friendlies against Egypt and Iraq. So I think, more importantly, it's really key to just understand that these games are warm-up friendlies. And yeah, just some of the pessimism that I've seen online, we are arriving into this with a truly elite manager, a winning manager, with a system that, in my opinion, is a better one than one we've seen in past years. And that system already got us to semis and finals. So yeah, we are going to speak all about Tuchel's England, whether or not they actually can win the World Cup with the squad that he's selected, why some of the squad has been criticised in terms of the selections, and we're going to go for everything. Before we start, massive caveat on this graphic I'm about to throw up on your screen, which is talking about all the stats comparing Tuchel to Gareth Southgate in all of the games he played at England per game. Massive caveat, obviously, of course, is that Gareth Southgate has managed the international tournaments and played better opposition. But I would say that these are pretty good reflections on what I've seen. So I'll throw them up on your screen right now. It is obviously key to remember, as I mentioned, major international tournaments, of course. But if you actually think about England and the teams we've lost to, we've really not played that many, massive teams in terms to get to these semi-finals and finals. So when we're looking at these metrics on your screen right now, I don't think, obviously, one game against Spain, one game against France, one game against Italy, one game against the Dutch is going to massively skew these. But we can see that under Thomas Tuchel, the possession is massively up. Passes percentage going forward is actually down, meaning that obviously England are trying to suffocate teams a little bit more, play a bit slower. Goals are up, goals conceded are down, total shots are up, total faced shots are down, XG is up, XG against is way down, passes is more, forward passes is obviously in the favour of Gareth Southgate. But these last few stats, high turnovers is up dramatically under Tuchel in comparison to Gareth Southgate. Shot ending high turnovers are up, press sequences are up, direct attacks are up. And to be honest, I want to talk to you a lot about what England have done and why I think the squad they are arriving into the World Cup with has so many positives in it that you can really get behind and convince yourself that England are going to have a good tournament. And I'm going to try and do that today. Without mentioning, I was really trying to do this stat for the last tournament squads that have been called up. England, out of the 26 players that are going to the World Cup, 14 of them have won a trophy this season. And that cannot be understated in terms of when we're arriving with Tuchel, he has always said that, he wants the second star on the shirt. He wants to play with England without the fear of losing. He said we want a hunger to win and a fear not to lose, but to win. And I think they are very key ideas when we're talking about Tuchel and the difference between him and Southgate. When we're arriving into this tournament, the difference, the shift in mentality, the amount of proven winners we've now got in the squad just off this season alone. And yeah, for the most part, it's been a 4-3-3 under Tuchel. We've had one sitter, 2 eights ahead, and the squad has been very much streamlined. And I want to go in to speak about the squad straight away because there's a lot of scrutiny. There are a couple of selections I don't agree with, and I'm not going to try and, brush over them. But for me, it sort of picks itself, this England team. And I will go through what my team would be. I think it would be Pickford in net, as always. I think Stones should play if he's available, if he's fit, if he's fresh, simply because I think he's unbelievable on the ball. And I think when we're going to go into talk about England, stepping onto teams, breaking lines and, creating like rotations and movement between, I think Stones is a brilliant centre-half at doing that. I also think Maguire is really good with stepping out with the ball, which is why I was surprised personally he wasn't brought up in any sort of vein. Therefore, I would play Konsa next to him, in my opinion. I know the reports are suggesting that Stones may play instead of Konsa, but for me, Konsa's a brilliant dual winner. He can defend his own box. He's got the capability of scoring goals in the opposition's box. He can defend wide channels. And I think against them bigger centre-forwards, he poses well, or better, in my opinion, than Mark Gay for all the technical ability Mark Gay brings and all the calmness. I do think Konsa, has the ability to play next to him. At left back, I would go with Nico O'Reilly. I think this season's said enough, but I will go on to speak about why these three connections here are massive for England in this tournament. Right back, I would go with Reece James straight away. I think he's been really good this season when he's fit. I think I'll go on again and speak about why he's so key, in my opinion, when a squad selection comes up to boxing teams in. And the two in front, ahead of Elliot Anderson, in my opinion, I think he's proven enough that he can play number 6 for England. He's got the right technical ability on the ball. He can snap lines, he can break lines, and he's got energy in his legs, and he's fresh, and he's played a lot of minutes this season, but it doesn't look like through the entire season that he's running out of steam. And I think personally he deserves to be number 6 for England. Ahead of them two, I would have Declan Rice at the left central midfield spot, and then I would have Jude Bellingham. And I know a lot of people have been talking about Morgan Rogers here. Personally, for me, Morgan Rogers, wicked player, don't get me wrong. I don't think he's a pure 10. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think this guy is a left inside forward personally, and I know he plays well in central areas, but I think it's different when you're comparing him to Villa, to England. And I think when you look at what England have with Harry Kane, the runners around, I think you need someone who's more of a central attacker, and that for me is Jude Bellingham. And yeah, a little bit of scrutiny's been through on Jude Bellingham, and a lot of the media are talking whether or not he will start, and is he good enough? I just think that's absolutely bonkers. I mean, this is one of the best players in the world when fit, in my opinion. I think some of the stuff he's already done for England in the last Euros, pretty much saving them at the death to have a deep run into the tournament, says enough for Jude Bellingham. And I think when we're talking about proven winners, characters, ability to score goals, ability to break games, that's a no-brainer for me. Bukayo Saka, despite his injuries this season, is easily the right winger in this team. Harry Kane up front, and then I would go with Marcus Rashford personally at left wing. I think he has more X factor than someone like Gordon, but I don't doubt that against some of the better oppositions, he may play Gordon instead of Rashford just simply for the jumps in the press, which we'll also talk about. So what does it look like when it gets into the opposition's final third? And I've got the opposition set up in a deep block in a 4-4-2 because this is primarily what England have been playing up against. And when the team does push very high on, you get this front 5, the back 4 here, and then one sitting midfielder. Now, I want to talk to you very simply about what is so crucial in these wide areas from Tuchel. And one of the reasons he's called up Jed Spence for me is personally because of one of these aspects of our game. So a lot has been put down to the wide rotations, and I've got loads of examples to show you, but this 3 connections here against a 2 outside has been massive. And when we're looking at Marcus Rashford, Declan Rice, Nico O'Reilly, Jed Spence, Anthony Gordon, them sorts of players, Eze even, are all sort of brilliant at playing fluidly in these areas. And what this means is when the ball is shift out, so if you can imagine the right back sits a little bit deeper with one sitting in midfielder in front, when we look to play down the side, we're looking for constant movement and rotation ahead of the ball. So when the ball is fired in, we're looking to turn, face the play almost diagonally, sometimes on the line like this, but we're looking for rotations and runs ahead of play. And we're looking for maybe Rashford to come deep, looking for the ball inside, Jed Spence to pull out wide. But then when the ball goes in like this, we have a constant idea of England to move fast with depth in behind. And that comes from the left back primarily. We've seen Nico O'Reilly do it obviously for Manchester City, but for England, in a lot of the games that I've watched, Jed Spence has been quite brilliant at this. And having a right-footed left-back on this side usually creates a bit of awkwardness in the squad. But when you look at these rotations, having the ability for a left-back to play naturally infield like this and penetrate the block inside is where I think he's looking for them different bits of versatility, whereas Nico O'Reilly's a little bit more of a depth attacker like that. Jed Spence can open up his body on the line and fire it inside. And I do think a lot of people have been talking about Lewis Hall, who's had a brilliant season, but I think when we're looking at dynamism and we're looking at depth in the squad and we're looking at, depth of attack and stuff like that, I think it does sort of make sense what happens there. And I've got to show you this example against Japan. So at 35 minutes, we can see that when the ball is worked out to the right-hand side, England have pretty much condensed on that right-hand side. And we can see that the forward three, I think it's Cole Palmer, Phil Foden and Dominic Solanke, might be Morgan Rogers, have all come nearer to the ball. And they are looking to show for the ball in front of Japan's back line to entice that pressure. When that pressure comes up, the immediate response of the England players is to, when the press is worked onto the back, to then spin in behind and attack the space in behind. In this example, they forced Japan a little bit deeper into their block, but then the possession is recycled. And we come through Elliot Anderson, and Nico O'Reilly now gets the ball. And then, as you can see, when Nico O'Reilly gets the ball, Gordon's actually looking at the space behind his oncoming defender for the Japanese defender. So if you can imagine this, Gordon's peeling out wide here. Ball's coming over from the midfield, and then once that player is latching onto him and this back line's a little bit further forward, and we've just talked about how they've been more congested on the right-hand side, they are looking for these really narrow runs to create that depth between. So on this picture here, Gordon receives it out wide. Nico O'Reilly's then slipped the ball down the side. It's worked in, and unfortunately, it's Phil Foden who gets delivered the cross in terms of a header. So if we're talking about the actual constant idea in this England team, the left side has been vital for this reason, for them rotations, for that depth, for them triangles. And it almost feels like when you get into the final third with England, there is pretty much like a very simple structure of how the players work. I mean, you've got a wide triangle here with the right back, the right 10 and the right winger. And on the opposite side, you've got the same thing. And I was trying to find a game where all of Rice, Rashford, O'Reilly, Saka, Bellingham had all played, and I couldn't really find one, to be honest. So it's a very, very fresh idea. But I've got this example again against Uruguay, and we can see that exact same thing. So we can see England have got the ball in the build-up. They have got them deep, them forward, them back-to-goal runs, so they are coming nearer the ball. And in this picture, you can see all of the players are now congested in the middle of the pitch. Jed Spence is looking for the ball, and because of how tight England are in the middle, they've congested the centre of the pitch with all of these bodies coming to receive the ball right here. That leaves Jed Spence with a lot of space down the outside. Then the reaction, again, so we've talked about Gordon standing on the line to entice the pressure like this, but this time it's Rashford who's creating a deep run. So we can imagine all the players in the middle, Jed Spence is there. Rashford then looks to come inside with the ball, and that reacts Uruguay's defence to step on, apply ball pressure there, and Jed Spence can spin down the outside. We can see this now. Harry Maguire steps through with the ball, and all the space is on the left for Jed Spence and Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford takes it down the line 1v1, works it back to Jed Spence, and he should cross from this position. This is one of England's main attributes. He should cross from this position, but he doesn't, because if you look at the box, it's very underloaded. So if I'm talking about what England are trying to do, that is the main core of their attack. And when we're looking at the England squad that has been called up, I think it's really interesting when you look at it and you look at the attributes of them players, and then you look at everything I'm talking about here with England and attack, why they've called up such straightforward and linear pickings in the squad. I was mentioning this before, but they have got two like-for-like wingers in Marcus Rashford, Saka, but then they've also got two like-for-like substitute wingers, whether or not it's Noni Madueke and Anthony Gordon. And they offer similar dynamics. They're all wingers who like to attack space. Bukayo Saka's a little bit different, a little bit more technical, can play a bit deeper, can work around the block. But throughout all the selections, I'm pretty sure you can almost put your finger on every single one of them having an attribute, especially in the forward areas, of running in behind and creating different dynamics and creating different situations. And when I was watching all of the England games, it was so apparent that Rodgers, Eze, Rashford, Gordon, Madueke, Bellingham, they all suit playing around Harry Kane. They can all attack space in behind. They can all run in behind. And I think that is something that in this climate, when we're talking about England having constant circulation of the ball, as we mentioned, 70% average under Tuchel, we are looking to create that depth and to create them runs in behind to take advantage of these deeper blocks. And for me, when I look at all the teams that have been favoured and all the teams that have been picked for the World Cup to lift the trophy, especially Spain are death by 1,000 passes, and in this climate, that will be tough. England have the possibility to do that, and that is without saying that, sometimes, yes, it can be boring, but if England win the tournament, I know it's a massive, caveat, but if England win the tournament playing this brand, no one will care. And in the climate, with the amount of possession they hold, how well they counter-press, because if you can imagine looking at the board right now, where we've got all of these players in central areas, and when the ball is worked in and it's crossed in like this, and let's just say they've got maybe 3 players attacking the box, there's that many bodies in the opposition's block that they are so efficient at counter-pressing and winning the ball back and sustaining attacks after attacks. If you just go and watch a lot of the England, chances they've conceded, not really many of them have come from the opposition in the position that I've got the red set up here, which is, deep against England's block, because they are a territorial team under Thomas Tuchel. And that doesn't come without sometimes boring the life out of teams and boring the life out of viewers. We all remember Spain in the World Cup just gone, in the World Cup 4 years ago. They got criticised for having too much of the ball. I remember 18% Japan had of the ball, and they actually won the game, Japan, and Spain went out of the World Cup. They come back to the Euros, they did the same exact thing, and the margins were just a bit wider with the player quality, and then they ended up winning the Euros. So England do have the scope to completely suffocate teams and dominate the ball high up in the opposition's half, but then they also have the depth in attack where it's runners, where it's constant circulation of the ball, where it's constantly mix and matching the rotations out wide. Because in this game against Uruguay, despite us, drawing 1-1, a lot of the first half and a lot of the 60 minutes, a lot of the work come down in their opposition's half, breaking the block, taking advantage of that Bielsa man-to-man block. And yeah, for me, I just think this could be something where you see England. I think they're so close. I think they're so close to having such a great style, because I think the way Tuchel wants to attack when we're high up, it takes a lot of energy with the runs, and that obviously in the climate will be a massive factor. But it takes a lot of energy in the runs, but I think the intentions are so clear. And to just hone in on that, we've got an example at 60 minutes. I was watching the game back on Y-Scout, this Uruguay game, and for some reason, there wasn't any commentary on the game. And you could hear Tuchel's reaction to certain actions on the sideline. And there was an action where the down in these wide triangles again, the down on the side like this, and they work everything over, and Jimmy Garner comes to receive the ball like this. And he pops it off to Jed Spence, and they've got Rashford holding the whip. He pops it off to Jed Spence, and Tuchel's down here screaming, Jimmy, run diagonal, run into the space. And he's screaming at him. It ends up being Jed Spence who plays a 1-2 with Rashford round the outside, makes that run, and then we attack Uruguay's block like that. But the intentions, if we can just take Jimmy Garner's, instruction in that situation and pretend it's Declan Rice, that would be incredible to have that. To have a Jed Spence playing right-footed inside to Declan Rice making a more deeper run like this. To have Rashford who can square a 1v1 against a fullback and go 2v1 like that with a Rice or O'Reilly. I think then the idea of that is so good in my head. And I think when you watch, Rice has scored a few goals for England under Tuchel, and it was no surprise that Tuchel's, enjoyed working with him. I think he's vice-captain going into the World Cup. If you watch a few of the goals, or watch a couple of the goals that Rice has scored, they're all from when the ball is on the right-hand side, he's actually making a deep run to the back post. There was one example, I think, against Latvia, where he actually makes a similar run, but playing on the right-hand side. And Saka's got the ball squared up like this, and he slips the ball through to Rice down the side like that. Again, deep run behind the opposition's line. He squares it back, and I think the left 8 actually is the one to tap it in like that. And these ideas, for me, are just suited a little bit more to the modern game. And this is without even talking about how good England are off the ball. I mean, we've just mentioned the high turnover stat under Tuchel. All of this possession, all these ideas and all this energy, like when I think of England, and people have often had criticised Tuchel, for, just for a German manager in England and why it's gone too far away. I mean, we mustn't forget, a manager from that country, so a World Cup manager, has never won the World Cup having not managed his nation. So if Tuchel is to do it, it will be frightening. But in my opinion, the way he's playing is much more suited to the way England, in my view, are, which is a fast, powerful, attacking, tall, resilient, robust team. And when you look at the players he's called up, the robustness in the squad, when you look at the 11 I've just thrown up on the screen, like, in my opinion, that squad suits that idea of football. And if we can, go against Croatia, Ghana, Panama, and then eventually maybe, I think it's supposed to be like Congo, Mexico, Brazil. We can't predict the deep run into the tournament, but we will have a physical edge over all of these teams. The climate is a massive issue, which I do understand, but that is why the squad's so streamlined. The squad is streamlined to a point where if you want a number 10 who can run beyond, and Jude Bellingham's played 60 minutes in East Gas, well, we've got Rodgers. If you want a winger to take 1v1s all day, we've no longer got a Palmer or a Foden in the squad, which has been criticised rightly or wrongly. But if Saka or Rashford comes out, you've got similar archetypes out wide in terms of Madueke, in terms of Gordon. They are more 1v1 wingers. And I think the reason why he's not called up players like Cole Palmer and Phil Foden is because how many headaches have we had in tournaments where, it needs to be Jude and Foden both in the same team? I remember the Spain 11 coming out and me being a bit confused in terms of why was Jude Bellingham sort of shunted out wide to accommodate for Phil Foden. And yeah, I think Tuchel's mentioned this. Reputation is not been a factor in this World Cup. It's more about balancing the squad with what England want to do. And I think a lot of, major nations have always had these issues. I remember Spain always using Unai Simon instead of David De Gea because they were consistently obsessed with playing out from the back. The centre-halves have to be good on the ball. For nations that have won the big trophies, they have often streamlined their ideas into what they want to do on the pitch, and they build the squad around that idea. They don't build the squad and then think of what they can do with it. It's one of the more favourable things you can have as a manager, which is to pick a squad based on your idea. Sometimes you walk into a club and the club isn't designed for how you want to do it. Tuchel has cut out the idea. He has now he's picked a squad which suits his idea. And it's all fun and games if they win it, of course. But I think this squad's more streamlined to what a manager wants to do, where I feel like under Gareth Southgate, there was a lot more adaptations, a lot more chopping and changing in terms of the shape. We were talking in the office before. I remember halfway through a tournament, Trent Alexander-Arnold magically playing in midfield when all of England fans had called for him to start. And it's like, well, no, we just want him to play right back. But because of the amount of headaches throughout the squad, you have to chop and change and rejig the structure halfway through. This squad doesn't strike me as one that needs rejigging to work. It has like-for-like replacements in each position. And it has dynamism, it has versatility. So it's not, if we're struggling to do everything with this idea, then it can't work. We've got Eze, we've got Rodgers, we've got players like that off the bench, Kobbie Mainoo. They are different types of players in terms of different dynamics, but they are still very much similar, same but different. So I think when we're looking at the England squad, and I'm looking at the pessimism that's being portrayed on England, which it always is, which you can't forget, then for me, this is a lot more comfortable going into it because a manager's got an idea and they're working with the squad to make that idea and to grow that idea. And yeah, I think another thing as well, as we mentioned before, the out of possession stuff is better under Thomas Tuchel in terms of the amount of high turnovers we're having. And I want to explain sort of why that is the case and some things which we have been doing. Now, very rarely do teams try and build up against England, but when they do, like the Uruguay game we was mentioning before. I know the game finished 1-1, but Uruguay didn't really create absolutely anything. I mean, I watched the full game. They had no territory against England. There wasn't one moment against the England box apart from the penalty that really concerned anyone. And I think this 4-4-2, Tuchel's put a lot more emphasis on the line being a lot higher. We can see that a goal against Senegal, which you can go back and watch, where the height of the line is really high and there's a slip ball down here that goes over the top, which they play in behind and Senegal score from. That's the risk-reward factor, of course. But I've got an example here to show you going zonal against man-to-man against Uruguay. And we can see how timed the jumps are and how everyone's going man-to-man when everyone moves in the forward line to cut off the ball and work it out wide. Everyone's jumping at the same time and they are recouping the ball in higher areas. I think most of the problems you're going to see with England is, for me, when I looked at the squad and we were talking about it being very streamlined, one thing that I can't agree with in the squad is the lack of a deep passer in terms of Reece James is the only person in that squad in my head when England have got that settled possession against a deep block, against like a Japan who go more zonal, who maybe play a back five, Reece James is the only one outside the block who can actually create a wicked cross from a deeper position or a chipped ball from a deeper position. And for me, players like Adam Wharton and Trent maybe should have been included because they are more, penetrative passes. They are more, just creative passes in terms of creating something out of nothing, settled block. Because I think if I look at the England squad, Rice, Jude Bellingham, Morgan Rogers, Eze, Kobbie Mainoo, Elliot Anderson, they are not players who are going to do that consistently throughout games. They are all thinking forward. Kobbie Mainoo's a little bit more different with his hips, and he gives you a little bit more of a pocket player. But for me, there is a lack of someone who can, create from a deeper position, whip a ball in from a deeper position. And that's the only thing in my mind, especially with the left backs. Nico O'Reilly's not much of a crosser. Jed Spence would have to come in on his right-hand side to cross the ball in. Reece James, obviously, on the right-hand side is the one we're mentioning. Tino Livramento is a little bit more of pace and power down the outside. He's a very energetic player. So for me, that's the only real concerns I have. I really would have taken Adam Wharton. I think he's just got the right... If we're losing 2-1 maybe, or the game's a little bit tighter, I think them sorts of players who play a little bit more height on their passes, a little bit more zip, a little bit more, attacking balls in behind. I think that's what England are missing with all them deep runs coming from the players we've just mentioned. From deep, Declan Rice isn't going to do that. Elliot Anderson maybe, but no. Kobbie Mainoo, one of these biggest concerns for me is that he doesn't lift the ball enough. He doesn't play with the ball at speed over longer distances. So I think that is where I would love to see John Stones come in, because he has not only the carrying with the ball to unsettle a block like that, but he can also step in and then find a pass in behind, something Maguire can do as well. So I think that will be absolutely crucial when England are having constant circulation of the ball. It's who's picking them players out. Rashford's got good setback, right-footed crosses from left deeper positions like this. Saka's got the same thing on this side where they can create them curved runs, them curved balls in behind to runs like that. So for me, that is the only headache I have with the England squad, where it's like, I think you could have gone a little bit more X factor, especially considering the squad is going to be used a lot more, I think, because of the climate, because of the amount of games that are being played, and because of some of the minutes in the England players' legs. I mean, all three English teams reached European finals. 2 of them won it. And all of the clubs really that have got the best players have gone so deep into a lot of competitions that they have ridiculous amounts of minutes under their legs. And I remember actually looking, I know a lot of people were maybe concerned that Jimmy Garner didn't get the call-up or Jarrod Bowen didn't get the call-up. They were 2 of the highest played minutes in the Premier League this season. I know that's not, over across Europe and stuff, but there are different sorts of games you play in Europe. But I think there is a need to want to rotate the squad often, because there's amount of minutes and the amount of load on players like Declan Rice, Elliot Anderson, Harry Kane is quite substantial. It's quite huge. And yeah, I think for me, it's going to be an interesting tournament. I've got one more example here to actually show you. And this is, again, talk about them deep runs. And this time, I want to talk to you about Madueke and, what he could offer. Because I remember that Serbia away game, a lot of people were saying he's brilliant. And it was a time where Saka was going for a bit of injury. And we can see here, the ball is worked out to the right-hand side, and Madueke actually comes all the way deep to receive the ball back to goal. He plays a bounce pass, and then the immediate action is to react to the pressure he's got on his back, and that's to spin in behind. He lays the ball off to Elliot Anderson. So in this picture right here, just before he lays it off, he's literally drawn in 4 players like that with his deep run. And then he's laid the ball off to Anderson. Anderson then finds a nice through ball into Rogers, and Rogers, lovely little flick in behind to Madueke. He's got that pace and power in behind the limited amount of space England can work with. He charges in behind, and England end up actually scoring this through Noni Madueke, but it's a 4v1 in the Serbia box. And stuff like that can really not be overstated when we're talking about going into a tournament where England are going to have 70% possession. They need to have X factor off the bench with pace, and they need to have that. Players like Cole Palmer, Phil Foden, even Jarrod Bowen, they are not going to have them deep runs. They are not going to be relentless down the line. They are not going to force territory. They are more players who are going to play inside between the lines who can keep it ticking. But for me, it won't matter if it works, and it won't matter what the style is as long as England win. And I think that squad is being maximised to win in the idea that Tuchel's looked at the squad and gone, that is our idea. Let me call up all the players that can work in it and give us the best chance of using that idea to win a trophy. So Yeah, and I was in a bit of a rut the other day, and I was going through every tournament under Southgate that we'd fallen short in, and I wanted to kind of compile some of the weaknesses in terms of why did England always lose these games. So Croatia 2018, it was a lack of quality, without a doubt. Southgate even said we didn't even expect to be here. England were at the start of their reign under Southgate. It was a success story to even get that far, but this was the beginning of England being an inferior team. In that game, Croatia had 25 shots. They had more of the ball. Their keeper didn't make one save in that game. Croatia were by far the better team, despite England scoring first. This is a running theme. Italy 2021, complacent to see out a lead after Luke Shaw's opening goal. England scored after 2 minutes, but their second shot came in the 64th minute. They had 35% of the ball, 6 shots in comparison to Italy's 10, and 0.55 XG in comparison to Italy's 2.16. They were edged out by penalties, but they were edged out throughout the entire game in a massive scale. France 2022, it was probably one of England's better performances against one of the major European nations. Obviously, Harry Kane missed a penalty, but that game was the start of where England got to a big team and they went, no, we can actually play against these. We can win. But the fact that they lost made it a massive stumbling block for England. And then we go into Spain 2024 in the Euros final, where it was an inability to adapt to Spain. We played really well in the first 45 minutes, didn't really give Spain much to offer. The press was really good from England, but then Spain changed it and they went to more of a different midfield setup. They pressed well against a 4-2-3-1, but then Spain moved to a 4-3-3 and stuck 2 ahead. And England didn't know how to jump onto that one midfielder whilst leaving the massive gap between the base midfielder and the 2 ahead. But in that game, England had 0.53 XG from 9 shots. Spain had 65% possession. 1.66 of their 1.9 XG came after the half-time break, and all of their big 5 chances in that game did as well. Spain played more than double England's overall passes in the final third with a 30% better success rate overall. And they did in the end, when the game was obviously drawn closely by Cole Palmer, but it was a wicked strike off the bench. But England could not break down the block consistently and create chances against a better opposition. Even in the Euro 2024 attacking rankings, England were actually 8th or 9th for XG created across the whole entire tournament. In the build-up to the final, England were actually beaten on XG throughout the entire of their games up until that final. This is a team now under Tuchel that are literally resisting any sort of margins in the game. As we've mentioned, their press is relentless. It's better. They are creating more XG. They are conceding less XG. We're yet to see that against a European team, but the way Tuchel is talking in build-up to this tournament is that he's going to be the man to instill that confidence into England, where they have to come out and play as one of the better nations, if not the best nation at this tournament. And the style we've just talked about, with 70% of the ball, constant rotations, suffocating counter press, good off the ball counter press, good zonal block, higher line to go up against them, not chopping and changing the structure, not ripping it up and putting someone else in to change the idea like the Southgate often did. It's a streamlined idea as to how England are going to go deep in this tournament. And that is everything, in my opinion, that England need to make that next step and to become the better nation, to become the less inferior nation in these major games. So I think for me, yeah, it's a really interesting one. And I've been trying so hard to play the optimist with this England squad. And I'm firmly in the camp that I would rather do it full stop. But the way Tuchel is going about trying to do it, in my opinion, is more of a front-footed, big nation thing. He's doing it with authority, the way he's speaking, the way the players are speaking. Even when Declan Rice and Harry Kane were asked about his introduction as England manager, every one of them said, he's here to get us over the line. Every England player in that squad knows what that manager is there to do. All the players are 100% committed because that is exactly what he's been brought in to do. They've not took a sideward step. They are going for a proven winner on a Champions League scale to bring home the glory. And I think personally for me, they are in a better position than what they've been in the last few of the tournaments. And I think it cannot be overstated how good English clubs have competed on the European scale. How many winners? 14 out of 26 players have won a trophy this season. It's got to be one of, if not the highest rate of England players that have gone to a final, gone to a World Cup finals. in terms of even across the world, how many more nations have got them proven winners? Obviously, Barcelona will have loads of league winners in there. PSG may have a few of the French lads, but across the board, England have got 14 of them. So the manager's saying they want to win. The players are winning at club level, and the fans are now expecting us to win. So for me, the pressure's on, but I think this team is more accustomed to dealing with the pressure than the vast majority of them. I mean, even the Arsenal lads that have been battered pillar to post, they've got the title. So, I mean, if they've got the title, the Villa lads have got the title, the Palace lads have got the title. You know, Jude Bellingham's a proven winner, Champions League winner, Kane's won a title. Like, we've now arrived in such a sweet spot where, yeah, the squad might be a little bit not what people like in terms of we maybe need Foden or Palmer, but it feels like the most accomplished squad we've ever gone to a World Cup with, and I think that cannot be overstated when it comes to playing in the World Cup and the amount of scars that England have had in past years when they've often had that inferior mentality to not go for the throat of things. So, yeah, really big tournament this for England, and one that, in my opinion, is probably the best chance they've ever had to win one. I think all the top nations have a lot of weaknesses, including England, but as long as they handle the climate well, they get through the group stage well, they use the squad well, and that mentality is built in from the manager and the players, I really think that England could have a deep run into this World Cup. And yeah, I really hope we go far, if not win it, man. I'd really love to win a World Cup with England. I think some of the players, for the amount of, you know, heartbreaks we've had at the international level, I think some of the players just truly do deserve it for the amount they've played. So, yeah, let us know what you've made of Thomas Tuchel's England so far and whether or not they can win the 2026 World Cup. Yeah, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time for more analysis on the Overlap Breakdown channel. Thank you.